Good morning, Kahal Kadosh, Beruchim Abaim to everyone. Today, Friday, the 28th day of Menachem Av, the 6th day of August 2021. Today's special breakfast and class, graciously sponsored by our dear member Stephen Levy and family, La'ilui Nishmat, his beloved father, Moshe ben Yafa Halevi, alav shalom, that today is the day of his Azkara. Yiratzon, that to the words of Torah and Berachot, his neshama will have an aliyah in Gan Eden. Amen. For the iTorah.com live audience, you have seen that since the reopening of the synagogue, we had some adjustments to the time of the last minyan, and that caused an automatic delay in the transmission of the live class via iTorah.com. As we announced in the main piece a few moments ago, effective this Sunday, Tefillah will begin at 8:15. That means that our class should be able to start at around 9:20, the way things were done in the past. Obviously, Sunday and Monday being Rosh Chodesh, we may be running a few minutes late, but after that should be the comfortable schedule that we had for a few years. With that being said, Erev Shabbat Kodesh, Perashat Re'eh, Makam Rast, Shabbat Mevarchim, Chodesh Elul, Haba Aleinu Letovah. Rosh Chodesh Be'ezat Hashem will be Sunday and Monday, and Selichot, God willing, will be starting this coming Tuesday. We know that Chodesh Elul is also known as Chodesh Rahamim, the month of compassion, the month of mercy, the 40 days that HaKadosh Baruch Hu gives us, each and every one of us, individually and collectively, the opportunity to remedy some of our shortcomings or mistakes that we have done throughout the year. Although, as Halakha writes, that any day is good to do teshuvah. We don't need to have a specific day. But nevertheless, in the month of Elul, we are riding in the zechut of Moshe Rabbeinu alav shalom. We all know the chronological chain of events after the sin of the Egel, after the sin of the golden calf. Hashem and the Jewish people they were not in talking terms. They were literally, God forbid, imagine yourself in a marriage. You should never see this or experience this, but imagine yourself in a marriage relationship that husband and wife don't talk for 40 days. Can you imagine that? Don't ever imagine that. Don't try this at home. God forbid. Even one day that husband and wife don't talk to each other, not because he's traveling and she's also traveling to family. I'm talking about that pashut, anger, disappointment, sadness, and sometimes, it lingers for a few days. How much does to the relationship? This is what happened with Am Israel and Hashem after the sin of the golden calf. Moshe Rabbeinu said, this cannot be. This relationship, if we are supposed to be, the way the Perashah says in today's portion, we are the children of Hashem. We are the firstborn of Hashem. Banim atem l'Hashem Elokechem. So how come you're not talking? Not talking doesn't help the situation, correct? You're in the accounting business, right?
Yes.
Are you a prophet? No. How many times you have to talk to a client?
All the time.
Oh, constantly. I see you in action, right? You come, you ask, you talk, you dialogue, etc. So imagine yourself, if for business purposes you need to interact with a client, kol shikem bekal v'chomer, in our godly relationship, that we need to have this dialogue with Hashem. And this is what Moshe Rabbeinu was able to achieve. From Rosh Chodesh Elul till the day that Moshe Rabbeinu came down, the day of Kippur, the day that the second tablets were given, the way that the second tablets were given, so we ride on that zechut in order for us to have forgiveness from HaKadosh Baruch Hu. It's like you want to give a gift to your child or a gift to your spouse. Do you need to wait till the birthday comes to give them a gift? No. You need to wait till your wedding anniversary comes to give your wife a gift? No. Anytime you do it, it's welcome and it's appreciated. The same thing with Teshuvah, says the Rambam. But sometimes, have you heard of this word to the young audience, something called amnesty? You know what amnesty is, young students? Amnesty means, let's say, I'll give you an example. Never do this, but I'm going to give you an example. Let's say that a person was driving very fast and got a ticket, and the person did not pay the ticket on time. Once the expiration date arrived, then you get a penalty on the ticket. The longer the time the ticket not being paid, the higher could be the penalty. I think in the tax code is the same. A person doesn't pay the taxes, doesn't pay what they owe, penalty increases. Although you can negotiate, and I'm sure you do that. Okay? So sometimes the government makes an announcement and it says, we're giving amnesty to all those that have unpaid traffic ticket. Means you pay the original amount. You don't pay the penalty. You understand that? And penalty sometimes, I don't know, could be 10%, 20% sometimes, and the longer it lingers, even with tax owed, right? Tax debts could be 50%. So suddenly the government says, Mahila, we give you amnesty. Just pay forgiveness. This is the benefit of the month of Elul. Any day of the year, as the Zohar Kadosh says, nothing stands in front of the way of Teshuvah. So somebody asked me a question the other day. Very interesting question. Please listen to the question. Rabbi, I need to do Teshuvah. I said, okay, who doesn't? Okay, do you know somebody who doesn't need Teshuvah? We all need to do Teshuvah. What do you think? Because I'm speaking, I don't have to do Teshuvah, but I have to do Teshuvah more than you. Because I'm older than you, so I've done more things than you. Okay, that's what the Ramban says. Now, I said, okay, tell me which Avon did you do? You know what he tells me? You ready to listen to this? I mistreated an employee of my company. A Goya says, what did you do? I made a comment, a negative comment about her job performance, and I made her cry. Powerful question. Powerful question. I said to him, your question is excellent. And yes, you need to do teshuvah for mistreating a non-Jewish employee. If mistreating a Jewish employee is a Torah prohibition, mistreating a Goy employee is a worse avon. Why? Because you must add Hilul Hashem element. You know, we learned the other day, when a person comes to the synagogue, is not allowed to cross their legs in the synagogue. Why not? Because that's not the way you sit in the synagogue. So imagine yourself, somebody picks up a community magazine, kosher magazine, that is there to my left, the new edition came yesterday, and you go to the midrash, or you go to the main sanctuary, and you put your feet up on the next seat, or on the kobis that the first midrash has. I know what's going on, and watch the videos, relax guys. Okay, so listen to my messages. These are between the lines for those who understand. I know you're laughing, but you're not part of the clan, so you're covered. Baruch ata Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam she'akol nihya b'dbaro. So he asked me, Rabbi, what is the tikkun for making a goy employee cry? I said, number one, forgiveness. Ask for forgiveness. Go to the person and apologize. Says, I'm sorry, the way I spoke to you before wasn't the right way. Okay? Apology is number one. From a Torah perspective, there are 4 steps required to do teshuvah. Number one, recognition. If a person doesn't recognize the need to change, how I'm gonna change? Number one. Number two, regret. oh, now I know that mistreating an employee is so problematic, I feel really bad. Because you have two sins. Number one, minimum two, could be 10. Number one, mistreating another person. That's already mega sin. Number two, Hilul Hashem. A person says, I don't understand you. You're a Jewish guy. You have a mezuzah in your store, in your office. You have a charity, and you give charity. And this is how you talk to your employees. I'm going to take a parenthesis, a break on this concept, and I'm going to travel back 3,000 years ago. Remember, one of the founding fathers of the Jewish people was Yaakov Avinu, correct? The father of the Shevatim. The Torah tells us that Yaakov Avinu that day was cooking lentils, emjedra, stew, was cooking to give food to his father Ishaq that was sitting Shiv'ah for the passing of Abraham Avinu. And Esav came and tells Yaakov, Hal'itenina, yani yabbi, bring it to me. I want to eat the whole thing. Forget about Esav eating patterns. That is disastrous. We already learned this last week, right? But I ask you a question. Yaakov Avinu, alav shalom, came from a very wealthy family. Ishaq Avinu was blessed with a lot of success in his life. He didn't have employees to ask them, please prepare something for my parents, my father that is sitting Shiva. How come Yaakov Avinu is cooking? So any one of us will say, oh, mitzvah to cook for your parents. True. But you know what the Ish L'Re'ehu says? That the moment that this cooking took place, it was the break time of the employees. And Yaakov did not want to disturb their nap time, their siesta time. Please correct me if I'm wrong. According to federal law, right? You work more than 40 hours, right? Overtime. According to federal law, time and a half. According to federal law, after a certain amount of hours, you're entitled to a short break, correct? At least that's when I had when I worked for the US government, that I cannot tell you what I did for obvious reasons. Not far from what he does today. Him and I can share notes later, but you know this already. It's not the first time that I'm saying this, a bit. You heard, right? Thank you. Please keep it to yourself.
10 years ago.
For security reasons, I cannot say more than that. Okay? And I remember, every 4 hours, we had 15 minutes break. All of you are in school. Can you imagine being in school 4 hours without a break?
Yeah.
You are not 8 hours without a break. Don't tell me that. Every period you have a break. You have a 5-minute break, right? Then you have lunch break. So think of why students need to have a break after each period, just to unwind for 5 minutes, 7 minutes. I don't know exactly your protocol when it comes to recess, and I'm sure that you have like a 45 minutes to an hour lunch break and recess time. Why that is done? Short answer is like you use your cell phone for 4 hours. Now the battery went down to 50%. So what do you do in those 45 minutes? You charge your emotions. You relax, you unwind, you eat, etc. So this is the reason, says the Ish L'Re'ehu, that Yaakov Avinu did not want to disturb the nap time of the employees. Not only that, remember the famous story in the Gemara that one day the Hachamim came to a goy in Ashkelon, right? Dama ben Netina. What they asked him, we would like to buy from you a diamond, a stone that we need for the breastplate of the Kohen Gadol. Now, Hachamim came ready to pay 100,000, let's say, okay? Or 10,000, whatever the amount was back then. What the guy said to the rabbis?
My father's sleeping.
What did he say?
My father's sleeping.
Right. It says, my father is sleeping now, and the key to the safe is under his pillow. I ask you a question. Imagine yourself. Your father says, who was that before? Oh, that was the rabbi wanted to buy from you $100,000 stone, and I told him to come back some other time because you were sleeping. What would have been your reaction as a father?
You should have woken up.
Hazak Baruch.
It's business.
Right. He said, and you don't wake me up for that? Now, you know what the Gemara teaches us? That how this goy, this Gentile, was careful of the mitzvah of kivud av ba'em. Because stealing, God forbid, is not only money. Time. Stealing, sleeping, and stealing of the mind. I talk to him, I get information, and then I do something. That's called stealing of the mind. It's in American law, this is called, it's not intellectual property, but that's very close to intellectual property. In other words, that's called stealing, genevada. Or I come into your store, at least in the good old days of digital universe, okay? I go into your store, right? And then I take your time, I look at a product, I grill you with questions, and at the end, I said, okay, I'll think about it. I never had the intentions to buy. You spend valuable time that perhaps you could have used with a different customer, that really the person did come to buy, and my intention was never to buy. So when you're in a situation like this, and you're not looking to buy, but you want to look at the product, today, no one can deny that with Amazon and other different business platforms, you know, it did take a toll, right? On the, let's call it mom and pop operation type of stores, like smaller stores, one type of store, because people, why they have to schlep to the mall and pay, and sometimes they overpay, and they spend time and money, go online, right? But, as somebody told me the other day, I'm so happy when it rains, because customers come to the mall. True?
Yeah.
True story or not? True story. The other day, I needed to go to a place, and then my wife tells me, but hold on, that store that you need to go is outdoor. It's raining, I'm gonna go to the indoor mall to pick up something that I ordered online. They told me store pickup, the way some companies offer you today. So in a way, you know, even one of the mitzvot in this week's Torah portion is the mitzvah of giving charity. The mitzvah of giving tzedakah. It's a mitzvah, I like to say, that is engraved in the DNA of each and every one of Am Yisrael. We give tzedakah daily, sometimes more, sometimes less, before praying, during prayer, etc. But what the pasuk says, Patoach tiftach. Open your hand. Naton titen. Give, you shall give. Aser te'aser. Separate the tenth. Now, why in some of the mitzvot found of this week's parasha, we find the redundancy of the language? Is because the Torah wants us that when we're going to give something, do it from your heart. It's not easy to give always from the heart. But guess what? When you give, you receive. Reciprocity. Reciprocity means like a boomerang effect. I respect my parents, My children respect me. I treat people properly. People treat me properly. I think that I'm going to share once again the story that happened during the time of the Holocaust, that an old rabbi's life was saved by a Nazi general. You have to understand, during the time of the Holocaust, age was an advantage to remain alive, or God forbid, was a one-way ticket, God forbid, to the gas chambers. These are proven facts. This is history. So what they used to do, they used to gather the Jewish people from the ghettos. It used to be today ghetto in the outside world. You know what that means? Okay, you know what's the true source of that word was? It's from the Holocaust. Ghetto was these tiny cities and villages that all the Yehudim were put in as a can of sardines. They have thousands of Yehudim who lived together. They were removed forcefully from their homes. They were transferred into the concentration camps in carol cars. You know what carol car is? That means a car, a wagon of a train without windows, stuffed, smelly, that they used to put animals inside, cows or horses for transportation. Do you think that it was cleaned with Lysol after each annual transportation? For sure. This is where thousands, if not millions of Yehudim through the time of the Holocaust, right, were transferred from their cities to the ghettos. And many people didn't make that right. Lack of oxygen, diphtheria, uncleanliness, illnesses, contagious things that would happen during the Holocaust. Now it came the time to making a decision. Is that the person going to live, or is that the person is going to go to the gas chambers? That was the point of no return. And the younger the person was, the more chances of survival they had, because the Nazis saw young people as working force, and God forbid, medical experiments. If you read Holocaust stories, Alav Shalom Imahshemo. It's not Alav Shalom, Alav Gehinam. Dr. Mendel, he was one of the worst Nazis' enemies of the Jewish people. Remember? Experimental with human body. I knew people that went through him. One Jew in Brazil. I'm not going to tell you what the experiments that he had, but I'll tell you the outcome. No children. I'm not going to go further because I know the experiment. He made it in a Sa'udat Hoda'ah. Every year, he will make a Sa'udat Hoda'ah for surviving that moment. Once a year. He says now, and he will tell occasionally the story. Not simple. He merited to live up to the age of 90 with his wife. I knew them well. Because in a certain stage of our life, he was my father's partner in business in São Paulo. Yes, so I knew him well. Survived the Holocaust, a person with simha, something that is not easy. None of us, I believe, went through the Holocaust. But we heard stories. I had relatives who went through the Holocaust. Uncles of mine. Uncles of my wife's. His grandparents, right? Grandfather went to the Holocaust. Okay? Now, let's go back to this story of the concentration camp. So imagine yourself, there is a table with 3 Nazi soldiers making a decision. Left, concentration camp. Right, gas chamber. And you are on that line. Maybe 100 people per line. Imagine yourself your prayers at that moment. Especially if you are a senior citizen. You're saying, forget about it. younger people were sent to the gas chamber, for sure, I'm there too. So as the moments are going by, you say Shema. Can you imagine that Shema Israel? Because this is it. In 5 minutes, you're just another number killed by the Nazis. And suddenly comes this rabbi's moment. He's the next online. He says Shema Israel with tears. Behind these 3 Nazi German soldiers, there was a general who tells one of the soldiers, send the rabbi to the concentration camp. And he says to the rabbi, a good morgen, Rabbiner, which in English means good morning, rabbi. So the rabbi lifts up his eyes and he recognizes him and he says, a good morgen, Eich, means good morning to you in German. And the rabbi goes to the concentration camp. The rabbi, miracle of miracles, survives the concentration camps and eventually went to Eretz Israel, and he merited to live a very long life. When he came to the concentration camp, the other Yehudim that were way younger than him asked him, how much did you pay? Who did you pay? He says, pay what? Come on, Rabbi, you are 60 years old and nobody here is more than 30 to 40. How they let you live? He says, I'll tell you what I did 20 years ago. 20 years ago, the rabbi says. Okay, what did you do? He says, that Nazi general used to be a janitor in the building next to the synagogue. And in Europe, like in South America, and in America as well, but in America it's a bit different, the manager, or not the manager, but the janitor of the building usually mops the entrance of the building between 5:30 a.m. and 7 a.m. when most likely people are not walking or dirtying the floor. So every day, he says, I used to come to my synagogue at 6 a.m. And every day I saw this guy cleaning the front of his building. And I felt not good that I will step on a wet floor. Imagine yourself, one of our wonderful workers in the synagogue, that keep our synagogue clean and beautiful and elegant, is mopping the floor. Are you going to step on the wet floor? Most likely not. Most likely not. That's also part of the recheres. So he says that instead of stepping on the wet floor, he used to walk around on the street and say to him, a good morgen, Eich. Good morning to you. And this janitor became a general in the Nazi army, and he was promoted to general, and he remembered that when he was a young fellow, every day I will say good morning to him, and I will make sure not to step on the front, on the floor, on the wet floor. Now, is this a story related to halakha? No. Is this a story related to Shabbat? No. What is this story related about? Chazak Baruch. Be a person. Guess what? And I speak now to the entire audience here. We have goyim working at the synagogue. To say thank you to them, and please never kill anyone. Okay? It's important. Yep. And if you want to be nice to them and give them something privately, you have my blessing and permission. You don't have to, because we take care of them. But sometimes people feel nice to do, etc. But treat them with respect, being sensitive that they are humans at the end of the day. And this connects to the initial question that I mentioned of this Yehudi the other day, who spoke to his employee in a way that wasn't proper. He didn't say something, God forbid, inappropriate, okay? But he he reacted in a way that you shouldn't react. And it doesn't matter if it's in the world of business, with a Jew or with a Gentile. At the end of the day, Goyim are also created by the image of Hashem. That's the Mishnah in Pirkei Avot. It's a pasuk in Sefer Bereshit. So to have an explosive reaction, or to mock people, or to mistreat people, it follows under many of the messages that the parasha of today's Parashat Re'eh brings upon us. And that's why, if you remember, 2 days ago we discussed the person has the freedom of choice to make decisions. But in the event that we made a decision that is not proper or is not accurate or suitable, Hashem leaves the doors of Teshuvah, as we're going to say, effective this Tuesday, Umodeh ve'ozev yeruham. A person that recognizes the mistakes and takes upon themselves, from now on, I'll be more careful. I will say good morning and I will say good evening to the people in the front desk of my building. I'm going to say to the valet attendant, thank you so much, have a nice day. I'm going to come to my office saying good morning everyone, or have a good day, or have Shabbat Shalom, or go to our Gentile employees and say thank you so much for whatever you do for the synagogue, etc. And I want you to know the following. Some of these employees, how happy as you see them, for them, this is the only income that they have. Some of them take an hour and a half each way to walk and to take a public bus, because the public bus system doesn't have stops. Some of them, they go to the central station by Aventura mall and they walk from there to here, back and forth, rain or shine. As one of them told the other day, remember the story he said the other day? She receives a phone call. One of the workers that is here today, she receives a phone call and she's cleaning the midrash, the first floor midrash. And what she said, at this moment, I'm cleaning the house of God. I can't talk on the phone inside of the synagogue. True story. It happened here 2 weeks ago. Can you imagine that we learn Musar and Irat Shamayim from a goy? Says, I can't talk now. I'm cleaning the house of God. She didn't say knis because they're going, but this is, I'm cleaning the house of God. So if a goya has such a sensitivity when it comes to the synagogue, imagine how careful we need to be when it comes to our synagogue, when it comes to our behavior. I will finish with this. I repeat, and I know that sometimes I say things a few times, but sometimes are necessary due to the audience, due to the customers, and due to the parasha. Remember, we are ambassadors of HaKadosh Baruch Hu. Whatever we are, if it's at home, if it's in the street, if it's in the world of business, and in the synagogue. And each one has a different protocol. Each one has a different protocol. Why? Because the way I talk to you is not the way I talk to him. He's a young bar mitzvah student, and you are a person that went through life. So you have experience, you have knowledge, you have understanding. Okay? It's the same way, same thing when it comes at home. At home, I need to have a certain level of behavior. In the business, a certain level. But you know what's the common denominator between all of them are or is? That I cannot afford not to act properly. I cannot say, oh, now I'm in the world of business, I do what I want. Now I'm in my home, I do what I want. No, you don't do what you want. Why not? Because you're an ambassador of HaKadosh Baruch Hu. You're representing Hashem, whatever situation you are. You're a soldier in the army of God. What happens if a soldier one day doesn't want to wake up to be ready for lineup? They arrest him. We're not going to arrest anybody for not coming to shul. Relax, okay, relax. We know that extreme. But we are soldiers. And as soldiers, We need to be always remembering who we are and who we represent. Our mission is to do Kiddush Hashem, to sanctify God's name, and not, God forbid, the opposite. Thank you again, Stephen, for graciously sponsoring today's special breakfast and class. L'Ilui Nishmat your dear father, Moshe Ben Yafa Halevi. I wish everybody to have a Shabbat Shalom. Chodesh Tov B'Siman Tov. We're going to say Kaddish, and then we're going to do Ashkava in his memory. Baruch Adonai Le'olam. Amen ve'amen. Rabbi Hananiah ben Akashia Omer, רצה הקדוש ברוך הוא לזכות את ישראל